The IDF has boots on the ground in Lebanon. The IDF has confirmed that it has launched a series of ground raids attacking Hezbollah sites near the border. As of this afternoon, the IDF Homefront Command has also issued instructions for Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and northern Israel, restricting gatherings to no more than 30 people outdoors or 300 people indoors, in anticipation of further attacks. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The IDF announced the start of limited ground raids attacking Hezbollah sites inside Lebanon. The army says the incursions are aimed at removing the terror group's infrastructure along the international border referred to as the Blue Line. The cross-border raids began last night after the Security Cabinet approved plans for what is described as the newest phase of the war against Hezbollah. The IDF says the incursions are targeted and limited and focused on Hezbollah positions in a number of Lebanese villages along the border that pose an immediate threat to Israeli towns nearby. The goal to allow conditions for northern residents of Israel to return safely to their homes.
חיסול של נסראללה זה שלב חשוב מאוד, אבל זה לא הכל. אנחנו נפעיל את כל היכולות שיש לנו. ואם מישהו לא הבין בצד השני מה הכוונה כל היכולות, זה כל היכולות, ואתם חלק מהמאמץ הזה.
The Air Force is continuing its waves of attacks on enemy targets throughout Lebanon. Overnight, there were strikes in Beirut targeting Hezbollah weapons production facilities located in close proximity to the airport. Elsewhere, the Air Force continues strikes on Hezbollah missiles and missile launching capabilities. In recent days, since the killing of Nasrallah, Hezbollah has only been firing rockets toward Israel sporadically. A number of rockets were fired at northern towns in the latest barrage. Some were downed by air defense. There were no injuries reported. At the start of the incursion into Lebanon, much of the Upper Galilee was declared a closed military zone. This morning, Hezbollah fired a large rocket barrage toward central Tel Aviv and the greater Sharon area. Red alert was sounded in Tel Aviv and surrounding cities. A bus driver was seriously wounded by shrapnel. Most of the rockets were shot down by air defense or fell in open areas. The falling rockets and debris caused fires along Road 6. In Washington, the White House said the Israeli raids in Lebanon are in line with Israel's right to self-defense and the safe return of the residents to their homes. The White House spokesman said the U.S. supports Israel's right to defend itself against Hezbollah and all other Iranian terrorist proxies. The White House added the caution that the Israeli mission can be risky and Washington remains in discussions with its Israeli allies.
Israel's entry into Lebanon is drawing global attention, with leaders expressing concern that the ground offensive could spark a regional war. More on these calls for an immediate ceasefire from ILTV's editor, Mayan Hoffman.
Israel defied the international community overnight by launching a ground operation into Lebanon, despite calls from the United States, European Union, and members of the United Nations to de-escalate the situation. While the United States was reportedly aware of Israel's plans and has committed to back Israel's efforts, President Joe Biden urged a ceasefire when asked by a reporter on Monday about his stance on the invasion.
I'm more aware than you might know, and I'm comfortable with them stopping. We should have a ceasefire now.
The U.S. envoy to the UN echoed similar concerns, stating, "We want to find a path to peace."
We do not want to see this spread.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell warned that further military intervention could worsen the situation.
Arms should now be silenced, and the voice of diplomacy should speak and to be heard by all.
French Foreign Affairs Minister Jean-Noël Barrot pledged increased support for the Lebanese army, while Turkish President Erdogan, a NATO member, threatened to involve the UN General Assembly. He cited a 1950 resolution that could recommend force against Israel if it continues its actions in Gaza and Lebanon. Can the international community stop Israel from resecuring its northern border via military force? At least for this moment, the answer appears to be no.
The IDF has only just begun its operations in Lebanon with the aim of pushing back Hezbollah and securing the north, and the international community is already pressuring Israel for defending itself. Here to speak with us is Brigadier General Yossi Kuperwasser from the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Brigadier General Kuperwasser, so glad to have you with us as always. Can you tell us more about this limited ground operation in Lebanon? What are the IDF's goals with this operation?
Well, the goal of the IDF is to, first of all, thank you for having me. Secondly, the goal of the IDF operation is to make sure that the conditions are ripe for the population of northern Israel to go back to their homes safely. And for that purpose, they need to make sure that the infrastructure of Hezbollah that is deployed along the border in order to enable Hezbollah to carry out operations inside Israel is taken care of and destroyed. And that's what they are trying to accomplish by this limited incursions into southern Lebanon.
Now, we saw missiles fired at Tel Aviv earlier today, and we've also seen the Houthis fire earlier this week at central Israel. What is the IDF strategy for dealing with the threat from the Houthis in Yemen?
Well, we are trying to build deterrence vis-a-vis the Houthis and to make sure that we charge them with a heavy price for what they're doing. There was the first attack in a couple of weeks ago on Hodeidah, and now a couple of days ago there was another attack in Hodeidah and in another port named Ras Issa. And I think that the Houthis definitely understand that it's going to be very pricey to keep attacking us. They cannot declare that they give up, so they keep launching their missiles and the drones. But I think that they realize that they will have to put an end to that before their economy is going to be destroyed. And that's the message delivered to them. And by delivering this message, we also deliver, I think, a message to the Iranians that they are within our reach as well, because the Hodeidah and Ras Issa are much farther than Tehran.
So the IDF, of course, is already facing tremendous international pressure in Lebanon. Why was a ground operation necessary? And do you believe that Israel has the necessary support from allies like the U.S.?
Well, it was necessary because without it, you cannot create the conditions to enable the population of northern Israel to go back to their homes safely. So that's why it's necessary. You cannot handle those infrastructure elements without being underground. If we're talking about tunnels and things like that, you cannot hit them from the air. You have to be underground in order to handle it. And yes, it is expected that we should have some international pressure because of what we're doing. But the fact of the matter is that the Americans have realized that this is necessary and gave Israel the green light for a limited attack, ground incursion, and that's enough for Israel for the time being.
Finally, do you expect this fight to expand further? How likely is it that the regime in Iran will get involved directly?
Well, I think the probability of that happening at this point is becoming bigger and bigger, but it's still low a little bit. And anyhow, we have to be prepared for this eventuality. We have to be ready to accept to deal with a situation where the Iranians are going to try and hit Israel directly from their territory. They did in April, and so it's not going to be totally new. And if they do, Israel has already said that it's going to be able to retaliate painfully for Iran, and I think this is taken into consideration in Iran, and we just have to wait and see.
Well, let's hope that they heed the warnings of the IDF dealing with the Houthis and, of course, Hezbollah on that northern border. Brigadier General Yossi Cooper-Wasser, thank you for your time, as always.
Thank you.
With anti-Semitism growing worldwide, the World Jewish Congress is doing all they can to ensure Jewish communities around the globe remain supported and united. Take a look.
As anti-Semitism surges across the globe following the devastating Hamas terror attacks on Israel on October 7th, the World Jewish Congress is stepping up its efforts to support and unite Jewish communities worldwide. In June, the World Jewish Congress's National Community Directors Forum, or NCDF, convened a critical meeting in Sofia, Bulgaria. Gathering dozens of community directors from across the diaspora, the NCDF provided a unique platform for leaders to share experiences and develop innovative strategies to counteract the challenges faced by Jewish communities today.
All the Jewish communities, Israel and the Jewish communities together with Israel, we facing a situation that for us is never had before. As we learn a lot of history, of Jewish history during our upbringing, this time we are living Jewish history.
Through the World Jewish Congress, Jewish leaders can discuss pressing issues, including bolstering community resilience, advancing gender equality, and leveraging the World Jewish Congress's extensive diplomatic network to advocate for Jewish interests globally.
It's so important that we're all here together in Bulgaria, speaking, learning from one another, discovering what has worked for different communities to combat the traumas that every single Jewish community is going through in the world. And so important that we speak with one voice.
The World Jewish Congress continues to reinforce a vital message. Jewish communities, whether in Israel or the diaspora, must stand united. By working together, they can confront unprecedented challenges and ensure their voices are heard on the global stage.
Even if it's difficult, it's essential that we unite, we exchange on common challenges, common responses.
In a world where the future seems increasingly uncertain, the World Jewish Congress is committed to ensuring that Jewish communities remain strong, resilient, and united, no matter where they are.
As the conflict escalates on multiple fronts, Prime Minister Netanyahu shared a public message directly to the Iranian people that went viral in the Iranian community, with millions of views within hours, where he called for regime change in Iran and emphasized Israeli support for the liberation of the Iranian people.
When Iran is finally free, and that moment will come a lot sooner than people think, everything will be different. Our two ancient peoples, the Jewish people and the Persian people, will finally be at peace. Our two countries, Israel and Iran, will be at peace. When that day comes, the terror network that the regime built in 5 continents will be bankrupt, dismantled. Iran will thrive as never before. Global investment, massive tourism, brilliant technological innovation based on the tremendous talents that exist inside Iran.
Well, he has been one of the leading voices since October 7th last year, bravely speaking out against Hamas and the ideology behind it. Musab Hassan Youssef is a Palestinian and the son of the founder of Hamas in the West Bank. He has a remarkable story of how he came to assist Israel as an informant, and he's dedicated his life to fighting the very terrorist ideology he was raised with. Thank you for joining us today, Musab. Now, we've heard harsh criticism of Israel for the alleged number of civilian and specifically child casualties in Gaza. You grew up with this ideology of Hamas. Can you share a little bit about what Gaza children are taught, and furthermore, how they're recruited and exploited by the terror group?
First of all, it's a culture that is actually not concerned of the children. The abuse process begins at a very early age by indoctrination, brainwashing, forcing the children to think as rebels and to adapt to violence. And this is just one form of the child abuse in the Middle Eastern Muslim culture. What Hamas is doing is a crime against the children. It does not end by indoctrination. Hamas recruited children for terror activities. And not to forget that some children actually were forced to wear a suicide belt, explosive belt, and they used them as suicide bombers at some point. Hamas won't hesitate to use children as human shields. This is what we are witnessing in Gaza now. Sacrificing children as part of religious ideology. And this is not a new thing. If we look back during the Iraqi-Iranian war, the Ayatollah used thousands of children to sweep minefields, kamikaze style. So these people are willing to sacrifice not only one generation, but many generations for political gain. It's not secret. But I think many don't understand or can actually conceive the evil practice of sacrificing children.
Now, throughout this war, we have seen Hamas use psychological warfare to manipulate the West and even the Israeli public. How can Israel fight back effectively against this without stooping to that level?
You know, Hamas dragged Israel into a very dirty war. This is their strategy. It is not that Hamas didn't know what would happen after committing a genocide on October 7 and kidnapping many hostages. They knew that Israel would retaliate. In the meantime, they booby-trapped schools, hospitals, streets, and they have been digging tunnels for many years beneath one of the most populated areas on earth. So Hamas wanted many civilians to die. They wanted the children to die. And this was their strategy to bring the West to its knees. All those who believe in civilization, this has been a challenge to all the values of the West. And Hamas knew that they would bring the globe to a crisis where Israel would look like the bad guys.
Now, jumping to the United States, Mossab, we've seen the influence of Islamist terror groups as well as their sponsors, Qatar, the Islamic Republic of Iran, very active on campus, acting almost with impunity. Is the United States actually endangered by Hamas as well? And do you think that Americans understand what's at stake here?
Unfortunately, they don't understand. They're trying to please everybody. They consider Islamists, communists, just as two colors of the society. So they are trying to satisfy their political ambition, not seeing the long term. Their concern is the short-term political interest. And of course, when we take in consideration the Arab oil money and how much money Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and other Gulf countries have been pouring finances into the American economy, now they will have they have no choice but to please the sponsors and to fool everybody and fool themselves. And that includes the Biden administration, by the way, that Muslims are allies, but they are not, because Islam in principle contradicts with the American Constitution, with the values of the West. It's more of an invasion that the West is in denial of. But we see what's happening in Europe. We saw what happened in Lebanon. And in my opinion, Lebanon is a very clear picture of what the Muslims, whether they are Shi'is or Sunnis, when they came to a Christian country, within no time, few decades, they turned it into rubble. They turned it into chaos. They turned the country, they divided the country, which led to one of the worst civil wars of all time. And today, when we look at Lebanon, where is Lebanon? So this is an invasion. And I'm afraid that this is the future of Europe.
All right, Mossab Hassan Youssef, unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you so much for joining us and shedding some light on these issues.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And now, how many people live in Israel as we enter the new year? ILTV's Devil Klein is here to tell us.
Yes, Emily. Hi. I have some fun stats coming to us from the Central Bureau of Statistics. So just to recap some of the highlights, we are now 10 million people living in Israel. That is about a 1% increase in the population since last year. We grew by around 118,000 people over the last year. Of those people, 7.7 million people are Jewish. So that's about roughly 79% of the population. Another fun fact, we have 33,000 new immigrants making Aliyah just this year. Most of them are coming from Russia, with nearly 20,000 people, while over 3,300 people arriving from the U.S. and Canada. Most of these people are going to cities like Netanya, but others being welcomed also in Tel Aviv, Haifa, and Jerusalem. So from us here at ILTV, we want to wish everybody a Shana Tova Umetuka.
This past year that has caused all of us to feel pain and sadness as we are about to enter another year still in the thick of a multi-front war. How are Israelis feeling? Here's ILTV's Ariella Lahiani with more.
This time last year, I went out in Tel Aviv just ahead of the Jewish New Year to speak to some people and to hear about their favorite holiday traditions and their New Year's resolutions. Well, last night I did the same, and of course the conversation was very different to what it was last year. This past year has been a year filled with grief, pain, shock and dismay, but also unity, hope and resilience. So how are Israelis feeling as we close this year and move into a new one? What has this past year taught them? Are they hopeful for next year? Let's take a look.
This last year has taught me that adversity and difficulty is part of life, I guess.
To be happy with what I got and to love and see the people that are close to me, put them close and appreciate them.
It's really taught me the strength and resiliency of the Jewish people, especially of Israel. We're very emotional people and we love to love and we love to be dramatic, but we're never dramatic about security or safety. There was a siren, I was in the ocean, and we just ran to safety, and then everyone just went back into the ocean.
The resilience of the Israeli people. I heard a really beautiful thing the other day. Usually in English we say to each other, have fun, enjoy, and my Israeli friend said, La'asot Chaim, do life. So I think just doing life even when times are tough is something that I've learned.
I think I learned a lot this year about resilience and finding community and comfort with people around you and not taking advantage of any of the opportunities we have in this country.
To love everyone. I wish for Israel going into the next year, the coming back of all our kidnapped. I wish that we have some sort of unity, some sort of camaraderie.
And I think that my wish for the Jewish people is to just always continue to celebrate life, and everything that's happened this past year shouldn't break us, but should just remind us to just how important we are to one another, and that the whole world can try to destroy us, but at the end of the day we just have each other.
Hostages come home, northern residents go back to the border, peace, happiness, and the rest of the world stop demonizing us.
I think the only thing we can wish for in the coming year is to bring our hostages home. There's really nothing else on our minds and nothing else that we can think about, and then just world peace.
I feel hopeful, always. I believe in the Shem, Baruch Hashem. God Almighty is behind us. Nobody's gonna defeat us, man. We're the Israeli people. All is gonna be good.
I really feel hopeful for the next year. I think if this year taught us anything, it's that we're only stronger together, and as a country, I think we're uniting more and more each day.
It's really hard knowing that there's still hostages in Gaza, but I feel really hopeful that Israel's really strong and we could defeat our enemies, and that we choose to celebrate life.
Of course, the Israeli have a little, problems inside, but I think all of it comes together when we need help from each other. We do it good.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures reaching lows of about 20 degrees Celsius or 69 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, cloudy skies are expected in northern parts of the country, while the south enjoys sunny skies and highs of around 28 degrees Celsius or 83 degrees Fahrenheit. That's all for today's news. Due to Rosh Hashanah, we will not have a broadcast Wednesday or Thursday, but as always, for more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channels, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our website, iltv.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.